What is up, hotties? Welcome back to another Stay Hot film review. Today we are taking a look at Mike Green, edge rusher from Marshall. We're going to hop right in, but first I'm going to throw to Theo Ash, my esteemed co-host, to explain the structure of this film breakdown.
Yeah, so we've done these before where we go through one game and scrub through everything. This time we each watched a game and are now kind of coming together to share clips and any notes we may have, and we'll see what kind of consensus we go to and if we can cover more ground maybe than just the one game in the same amount of time. So I will go first, I guess, and I watched a game versus Southern Mississippi, and they went 1-11 in college football this year.
Right.
Great game.
So I will start my film with that warning.
Yeah, this is going to be kind of the issue with him, is that a lot of the competition, not all of it, luckily, since Marshall had a couple of big-time games against big-time tackles, like, against OSU. But there's only so many performances like that he's had an opportunity to have, and a lot of it is UL Monroe, Southern guys.
It is. It is.
Whatever.
Matt, you'll go from watching the best team in college football yesterday to the worst team in college football today. You'll get...
Yeah, just about.
You'll enjoy both ends of the spectrum here. Anyway, so the first part of my cut up here is just Mike Green just kind of generally being a problem versus the run. They like to blitz these nickel players, and then he falls into the B gap and instead of setting the edge on the tackle. It happens all the time. This is one of those times, and he's just going to swim over the left tackle here, and then 71 just tackles him to the ground, and he draws a hold.
Right, and I think the big thing with him is like, okay, so he's this edge rusher, but he weighs, like 248 he's listed at. So your immediate question is, what about the run game? And I think getting him involved in this way, because a lot of my clips have to do with his lateral quickness and how that's his superpower. So allowing him not to just try to set the edge, but to really use that to, in this case, like get a big win, even in a run that's away from him, is a effective use of him and his talents.
Totally. It simulates pass rushing almost. Like, this isn't your traditional, like, just lock out and read things, run defense. This is like a swim over a tackle, trying to penetrate, just in charge of one gap here instead of two. And you see how good he is at that, crossing this guy's face, getting his hands in the right spot, then kind of squeezing through this gap with his feet. And yeah, the tackle says, I don't want him to blow up my play, so we're just going to bring him down and hope the ref doesn't notice, but they do. And
yeah, it's not well concealed, I'm afraid.
No, it's not.
No.
What's this one? So this one, he actually is setting the edge. The run goes to him, and yeah, he's going to set that edge and get his hands in the right place, lock out, and then from this point, he can make a play on either side. If the running back wants to try to bounce this fully outside, he'll be able to clean that up with his outside arm. Running back goes inside, he's able to disengage and just, kind of gator roll on this guy's legs and get that done. Pretty straightforward, pretty simple stuff. You'd really expect him to be good at this versus Southern Mississippi, which kind of goes through the whole film. This one, he goes over the split zone tight end that is coming at him, or wide receiver, whoever that is. Ben Skoranek on the Steelers. Russ? Ben? Najee?
That's true. It does kind of look like that. I wasn't even thinking about that, man.
But yeah, I don't know if he'll be able to get away with this in the league, but he diagnoses this pretty quickly and is just able to...
Another run stop that kind of simulates pass rushing. Almost
definitely
like the arc, and
definitely. And he's such a long strider. He's got these long legs. He just eats up space, and he's very good at just kind of picking guys off with these ankle tackles.
He does that a ton.
He is a bit of an ankle biter. He is 248 pounds, keep in mind. That is something to keep in mind as he translates to the league. Like, how good of a tackler will he be? Because he is always kind of around the ankles here. Although on this play, when you go over the split zone blocker like this, there's kind of nothing else to do. So that's why.
The correct course of action would technically be, like, if you are able to blow up the split zone blocker.
Yeah.
Right? Like going over, like that is technically what they want you to do.
Yeah.
But
If this guy cut back, there could be some problems for Marshall's defense, right? But
yeah, that was like the wrong play. It just happened to work out because he's like a really good athlete against a really bad team.
Yeah.
You know what?
Exactly.
You know what?
When
I
we
kind
get
of
into
thought
the
of.
Ohio State game, it'll be interesting to see that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I kind of thought of as I was watching him? It's like last year, was there a crazy athlete in a really bad conference who was getting first round hype? It's like, yeah, Quinyon Mitchell.
Yeah.
And he's ended up being good. Now, of course, like these are two completely different players playing completely different teams at completely different positions. But seeing stuff like that, and in general, seeing lighter edge rushers like Chop Robinson had a good year, Nolan Smith has started to come along, honestly, it makes me believe what I see a little bit more with Green.
Oh yeah, you see the first round tools with him all over the place, and yeah, there's definitely plenty of good edge rushers in his weight range right now. So this one, he doesn't end up making the tackle, but I don't think it's his gap. I still think this is a pretty nice play. So to left of center, you see how it's kind of a 3-on-2 situation here.
Yeah.
And he gets a down block from the left tackle and the tight end kind of coming at him. And then 77 pulls to the end man on the line of scrimmage. The wide receiver is going to try to work up to the safety, number 13 here. And I think they're trying to get this one-on-one with the corner. But importantly for Mike Green, you see the two down blocks that just don't really matter for him. He reads this pulling guard. He understands where the run is trying to hit. He gets over the top of the first down block with a swim. And then he grabs the tight end and then he throws him kind of out of the way. So you see that swim, grab, throw, kind of try to fall back inside. But unfortunately, there's no one back in this A gap between the center and the left guard here. But I don't think that's quite his gap. I think he did what he needed to do to, if he's going to be a B gap player, right, between the guard and the tackle, or if that gap is moving because of the pulling guard, like he's getting kind of where he needs to go. And then he's even falling back a gap too. So he's on a gap outside of 8 here and inside of 8, and he can't control 3 of them. So I liked this play. Swim, strength.
It's the way that he sort of can jump around here. I mean, 71 really doesn't get that good of a push on him.
Not at all.
I mean, this is a guy who probably has 50 pounds on Green, maybe more. And because of the way that, again, he's able to sort of jump in and out, like here, that out, all of a sudden, look at the position that he ends up right before Green, reaches to make that tackle. 71 is standing straight up. He's almost like just sort of leaning on him rather than really being able to get his hands on him and block him. And while I think to some extent it's like, okay, it's, a weaker conference. It's not, the SEC. So the athletes aren't going to be as good. When you watch Green, you can tell he's like a 95th percentile athlete, even for the NFL. He's even that good. And his production has lived up to what you would expect out of somebody with those tools at this level. So I really like him.
Yeah, and I think he reads the blocks here pretty well, like down, pull, just get in front of the run, force it to cut back, and then almost gets to the cutback, but can't quite do it. So that's the mental processing of kind of reading the initial movement of everything and like getting to where he needs to be is good there.
That's one thing I've noticed a lot is his reaction time is really quick. Like he processes things on the field so fast.
He's just really fast in every way. It's not like he's really fast in a straight line, or he's got really good get off, or he's got really good reaction time. It's like that all comes together to make a player that's just playing at a different pace than everybody else, especially again at this level.
So those were my run defense clips. Now we'll go into pass rush, although this one's kind of closer to run.
Organized, Theo.
I know. I'm proud of it. He had 3 sacks in this game. Here's one of them. This one is honestly a little bit like run defense because it's play action, and again, He's reading this power play. And again, there's that nickel blitz off the side. So he's able to kind of live in that B gap. So he gets in there. There's a down block from a center coming at him. He gets over the top of that. And then he finds himself in position to defend the run. But it's not a run, it's a pass. So maybe here he fell in love with chasing the running back a little bit too much in the NFL. Like there are some quarterbacks who might scramble here, and that might be bad. But again, just kind of causing havoc. And then he shows up in the gap. There's no running back there. And that's when you see the bend here. He turns the corner so well and just blows this up. And then he gets the sack. This is more on the quarterback, though. Like, he's got to... I mean, I don't know if he could have escaped Green, but, like, there's some NFL quarterbacks he probably could, and maybe he should have stayed a little bit more in recognize that this is not actually a run a little bit faster instead of kind of going
I did notice that a little bit with him. I think there were some plays where he didn't read it out perfectly, or he'd bite on a fake.
He can just get away with it. He can put out one fire and then go to the next thing and then go to the next thing. So it's like he can just kind of react to what he sees. And if he's wrong, he's athletic enough to like go solve the problem anyway, which is what happens here. What is this? This is another nickel blitz where he moves inside and is over a guard. This is my favorite rep of the game from him. It's so sick. He chases the guy all around, but really what's so good about this is his ankle flexion. His bend is unbelievable. So he gets in over this guard, and you can see him with that head fake like he might go inside right there. He might go in that A gap, and then that kind of freezes the guard and gets his weight on this outside foot. Like, oh, I got to maybe go back inside, and then Green accelerates back to the outside, chops his hands down, and then watch his feet here. All right, that step isn't anything crazy, but now you start to see the shin angle with the ground is getting low. His shoulders are getting low, and this is where the feet are pretty crazy. Like, just on his toes there, and then this step is really bonkers. Look at how low he is going around. His foot, like, his shin is parallel with the turf almost. He's just kind of planting the inside bit of his cleat here. He's on his toe. Look at how low he is, and he's getting pushed down, and he stays on his feet and pops up clean on the other side. I think this is such a great example of the bend he possesses to kind of curl back in towards the quarterback again here and chase him around until eventually.
Scooby-Doo sort of run around there. It's impressive he didn't get dizzy on this rep.
That's true.
No, I totally agree with the bend. And I mean, you've got to have that if you're going to be playing like he is. And it's one of those things where I think it's, to me, it looks like, again, a 90th percentile type of thing. Like, there's not a ton of edge rushers. There's a lot of edge rushers in this class, and I've only watched a little bit of a few of them, but it seems like this bend might really set him apart from a lot of other dudes.
He's got superior ankle flexion and can really, and strength too up the arc, so he can survive these pushes. It's very impressive what he's able to do turning the corner. So that
for a guy that's 248, he looks, I think, stronger and heavier than that. Like, that's kind of that might be to some extent the conference, but yeah, he's a sturdy 248. I mean, he's got the long arms. I watched the Ohio State game, and I didn't think he looked small in that game either.
Yeah.
Well, there's one of the things that I feel like I'm really starting to think, looking at this class, is there's actually another guy, James Pierce Jr. Now, I think he's listed even lighter than Green is, but he also can hang around and play strong, because when you have long arms, it's just easier to get winning leverage. And really, that's almost more important than just your straight up strength at times. So Green can make up for maybe just a lack of like pound for pound matching up with other dudes with his arms.
Yeah, he seems to play with good leverage too. And this is a Hail Mary before the end of the first half, so kind of a questionable rep to use, but I do think it showcases the bend again here. Kind of messy as he tries to stunt around his tackle here. You can see him kind of trip and He's flailing around, but he still keeps his balance. And this is the moment that I really like. So he's tripped, which is bad. But for him to keep his balance and then survive this push right here is pretty impressive. And again, you see his ankle, you see his foot just survive all this pressure on him as the only point of contact with the ground. This other step here now, he continues to dip and bend around this guy. And then, another step where he's starting to turn towards the quarterback, survives this push while kind of stumbling. Like, I think it ends up looking like a rep that would actually translate, like just how low he's able to get, how much bend he has.
It's the body control, man.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to go from stumbling to, pushing forward basically and being able to keep yourself up like that in, a third of a second or whatever is ridiculous.
Yeah, again, like 71, not an NFL tackle. If he stumbles like that, he might get put on his ass in the NFL, but still, like, sometimes he won't stumble, and it's just good to have the skill set to absorb blows like that and stay that low and survive those pushes, and boom.
And that's what makes him look so strong, right? The ability to do something like that, you wouldn't expect that out of a lighter guy at 248.
Yeah, he's 248, but he's got like superhuman strength in his feet and ankles, it feels like. And I don't have too many more clips here. We'll see. We might be getting into some of the clips I didn't like, actually. Okay, this is, for me, there's nothing necessarily like that wrong with this, but it's a rare example of him being one-on-one in a true pass set. And, like, he gets around this guy eventually, I think, and you see the bend again. I guess my only thing was, like, maybe he could have done more to set this up to the inside, because like this tackle just kind of keeps getting depth, and so does Green. And so by the time he actually gets around the arc here, like he's so far upfield. And again, there's a scrambling risk there. It just isn't super useful. I'd like to see him have a bit of a better pass rush plan here. And just overall, I'd like to see him use power. It seems like he can be kind of dependent on the bend around the outside shoulder. I just didn't see him power rush ever. So this was a rep where I thought was maybe a little bit overly dependent on taking the long way around.
I'm trying not to sell out everything that I all the points I'm trying to make with the couple of clips that I've got, but the big thing about him is that I don't think he uses power like very much at all, Blaiden. No. I don't know if you saw any of that in the OSU game.
Oh, I think you guys are going to like the OSU game then.
Okay. All right. He should be going up against Simmons in that one.
Yeah.
At least a little bit of the time.
Or who's the right tackle? 70.
The right tackle. It depends on what point of the season it was. Yeah. Regardless, I think that his path to like really being able to set up guys and winning at the next level is just the inside out combination rather than the speed to power combination, because you've got to be able to win in multiple ways to make guys respect you. And without the power, it's like you've got to really, like, for instance, right there when he just went outside, anybody can be fast and just try to go outside, but if tackles know that's what you have to do, it's a lot easier to defend. So he's got to cut back inside and make them second guess themselves and say, hey, sorry, if you're just too slow, you're just too slow.
Yeah, definitely. And there needs to be a little bit of power here. Like, this is a vertical set from the tackle, so it's going to be very hard to get around him, his outside shoulder. On the last one, it was a bit more forgivable because it was a bit more of a 45-degree set that's shallower. This one, he's setting almost straight back, and he still tries to win around that outside shoulder, and the tackle's just ready for it. He's able to push him way up, and Green actually hits the ground. If he's given you this much space and he's vertical setting, I'd like to see a speed to power conversion here, or an inside move, like you said. But like, there needs to be just a little bit of that bull rushing presence with him. And then I'll get through these last two quickly. Here, I think he should pay more attention to the quarterback.
Yes,
he doesn't really. He goes right for the running back here, and maybe should have slow played that a little bit more. It gets a little bit over enthusiastic.
Yeah, greedy
there, and crushes the running back, and the quarterback takes off. And then here was just a stunt that kind of gone wrong, and he ends up just kind of on the ground. Again, with these stunts, there needs to be a little bit of an element of power to you if you're kind of going first here, and he doesn't really have that. So that's the end of my cut up. That's the end of my scouting report on this game. Really good bend, quick diagnosing blocks a lot of the time, just flies around, super, super high motor, but didn't really see him establish himself as a power rusher at all, and maybe found himself on the ground a little bit too much, overextending himself and exerting maybe a bit too much energy at times.
So I will show you my game next against Ohio State. All right, so this first one, I'm going to start with a play that I did not love against the run here. Kind of got him in really a one-on-one with a tight end here, and I expect him to just absolutely demolish this guy. Like, this isn't against a tackle. It's not against Simmons. Like, you should embarrass him. And at first, I think he's getting, like, pretty good extension, just like, we saw in your film, Theo, the opportunity to play inside or outside. And then I think he gets greedy here. Running back runs into the back of his own lineman and then bounces it outside where he should have been, and as he's getting washed down the other direction. That's a play where I think he should have been more patient. He should have just waited to see what that running back was going to do. Like, if he had cut through, this gap right here, then yeah, you can be the one to make that tackle. But as he's running like into the back of the center or the guard there, you just need to kind of stay home and let that play develop out so that he doesn't bounce it outside and pick up, 15, 20 yards.
I won't lie, I fell for it too. I was looking at them like, I'm glad he broke in there. I don't disagree though. I mean, part of me feels like he just doesn't have a lot of help coming down in that gap at all, does he?
No,
This could be more on the safety. Like, is this another situation where he's supposed to kind of stunt inside a gap and then he's got help kind of out? But, oh yeah, you're right, that it seems like he's kind of controlling the edge and then does get greedy here from the end zone angle. I see that a little bit more.
And then he just kind of gets washed down there.
He should have more control over the tight end where he can kind of like peek and then he doesn't throw him and then get to the outside. He
doesn't have to commit that early, and he's trying to get in on a play. And I like that he is constantly trying to get in on plays because he's got such great range, But yeah, I agree. I think that was a mistake.
Yeah, but I mean, he does still have like most of that control there, and I think if he is more patient and lets this develop more, he probably does make this play. But like, I don't think he got like overpowered in this situation, but yeah, he still should have been able to stay home and make this play here. So we'll actually go to the next play in sequence here. This is a power rep. This will be a rare power rep that you see. This is pure speed to power conversion against that same tight end. Drives him straight back into the quarterback. Beautiful.
He threw him.
Yeah, man. And so at first I thought he was doing, because you get a little bit of a double clutch here from Howard. And at first I thought Howard was trying to go here, and I was like, oh wow, he kind of disrupted that passing lane too. But I do think Howard was trying to go to this double move by Smith on the outside. So he doesn't quite disrupt the passing lane as much as I thought he did, but he still does definitely force a pressure and force the quarterback outside. And if number 6 closes on this faster, it should have been a much shorter gain. But yeah, I mean, just absolutely blows him up.
Yeah, that's good strength. I mean, it is on a tight end.
But that's what you would expect him to do against.
But that is what you'd expect him to do versus a tight end.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of guys his weight who wouldn't do that. So
exactly. So this next play here, he doesn't line up against Simmons a whole lot. So right now he's lined up against 70. And this will be more of your kind of pure speed rush, bending the arc. Oh, that was way too far. And kind of the same thing in the rep you showed, Theo, where like maybe he could have taken more of that inside approach, seeing as how much space there is here. But I think he does a good job of really winning this rep early. And I think the ball just gets out really quick. And
Yeah, he wins that good and early.
Yeah. Like he does get, like you mentioned I think it was one of you mentioned he has a really long strides. And I think that shows up immediately here, like just purely wins this right away. Got good ankle flexion. And
really, he could have gotten there a little bit more.
What's up?
He could have gotten there more. I think he was held back a little bit, even.
A little bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
If the ball comes out a tick later, man, that's probably a strip sack fumble.
Could be.
Yeah.
So,
and he does a good job with his hands there too, just kind of batten down that outside hand of the tackle right there. And yeah, he does get kind of held on to there. That's a very, very quick win.
I'll show another nice speed rush here. Okay.
Playing wide.
Don't blink or you'll miss it.
I love this rep.
Just a pure highlight, man. Just a pure highlight.
Yeah, this is
as great as it gets. And over the course of the rest of this game, he does a lot of inside releases, in part because, Theo, I think you mentioned this during your film, they'll blitz a nickel player or a linebacker on the outside and he'll fill on the inside. So he's been doing that a lot against 70, and the awareness to say, I've been setting this up all game long. Let me hit him with a spin move. It was so fun to see.
Yeah, totally. They blitz that nickel and he spills into the B gap, and then it looks like that's what he's going to do, and he spins out. And again, if you slow this rep down and like look at exactly what his feet are doing as he pirouettes here, like his feet are special. Like
I mean, a spin's just tough to pull off if you're gonna like keep getting at the quarterback. You've got to spin and get lateral but still be going downhill, because anybody can just spin and like bend the way out wide, but here
his feet like lift up off the ground and like pick up and like almost bend in the air, and so when he comes down, he's turning that corner.
How many steps does he do this in? Like two. He does it almost in like
three.
One, two, and then he takes that and he does it basically 360 on 1 foot.
Yeah,
I can't do 360 on 1 foot like just walking. Like I'll have a tough time doing that. So to be able to do that at like game speed and get there is ridiculous, dude.
Comparing him to second round draft pick Matthew Sponhour. This is
right. I'm going day 2.
You were. They gave you number 21 though, so I thought maybe you were playing DB. I can't. Maybe linebacker.
Wow, there's a reason why I haven't gotten in.
20.
I haven't played yet, even with all the injuries this year.
You can't do a 360 on 1 foot.
We have to work on my twirling, but.
Yeah, this is that. What's that State Farm commercial? Doing the ballet or whatever.
Doing the ballet with
the Boondelay Save.
Boondelay Save. That's what you need. Yeah, we'll watch that one more time. It's so sick. 0 wasted movements.
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of power clips saved in here, but in this game, I felt like he was trying to do a lot of push pull and trying to rip through. And I almost wondered if my thought was that that's what he was going to be doing in those other games. And he was like, oh, I could do that against those guys. I should be able to do it against Ohio State too. And it wasn't really that successful. And then over the course of the game, he started to change up, go more speed rush moves, and he started to win more after that. So I was really impressed with just like the versatility that he showed throughout the game. Like he tried some things early, didn't work, and then he went to, something else and it started working. But yeah, I would like to see more discipline in contain. That was kind of the main thing that stuck out to me as a problem. But everything else, I mean, the tools are definitely there.
Yeah, they allowed a lot of rushing yardage in this game, but it was never to him. Like he was doing what he could, and the linebackers would be in the wrong spot, or the DTs would be blown off the ball. Like he can't cover all 6 gaps.
They ran
or whatever
away
it
from
is.
him.
They ran away from all the time.
And the one run we saw where the run went his way was a cutback, right? Like they didn't even they weren't trying to go his way to begin with. So it's clear that they recognize, like Ohio State is out here recognizing like this guy's a problem. Let's avoid him at all costs. Yeah.
And that to me, that's a big deal. You know, I mean, what would be the number one thing? I mean, I think I already said this. What would be the number one thing that you'd be worried about with a player like this? That he would be a disaster in the run game, and every team that went up against him would just be like, let's just run at him. And I'll be real with you.
Yep.
I don't think he was perfect in the run game in the UL Monroe tape or whatever, but they weren't really running at him that much either. So if you guys saw the same thing, I feel pretty good about him.
Yeah, every single game they ran away from him. It would make sense, since I think he struggles kind of to convert speed to power, and he's not much of a bull rusher, to be like, oh, he might be a poor run defender. He might have a poor base or poor leverage, or, you know, those two things seemed like they'd go hand in hand. I don't have too much of an issue about the way he plays the run, outside of maybe like attempting some insane stuff sometimes and playing on sound. Like he seems pretty good with kind of locking out and being able to make plays on both sides of the tackle and those kinds of things. So I like him as a run defender pretty good.
Okay. I've got 4 for you guys, since we've already gone through a lot of his stuff. The first one here, really, he is somebody who, like we said, overextends himself. This one kills me. with the camera angle, like panning right as he looks back.
As he looks, there is something cinematic there.
And there were a couple of other plays where I thought, you know, his reading things out doesn't seem to always be there. Like he's making his call a little early, and that ties back to one of the plays that you showed, Blaiden. I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world, because it comes from him having super impressive range and wanting to make a play and having the ability to make a play from a position where other guys wouldn't. But at the same time, you know, it would have been...
You're not making that tackle, dude.
You're not going to get there. Like this one, okay, if he's, you know, taking a more inside gap, yeah, you can come in there and blow that thing up. And, you know, he sees... For a second, he sees, I think, that split zone, and he's like, oh, I'm getting by 88 or whoever, and I'm going to do what he did earlier. We've seen him make basically this play, right?
Yeah.
Outside of the fact that this is way, way too wide for him to get to. But then he just, you know, leaves wide. Now it doesn't get completed.
Yeah.
But I was a little concerned about that.
I do wonder if it just comes from like the fact that you play at that level, and it's like kind of the same thing we said with Quinion Mitchell. It's like,
really, it's like the exact same thing, where it's like these guys occasionally, not even that rarely, but like occasionally are just in the MAC. They're in the Sun Belt, and they're like plus NFL athletes.
Yeah,
they're not going to swing for singles all of the time. You know, and that's not to say that that's like, okay, I'm giving him way too much of a pass for a bad play. I know, but it does remind me a lot of Mitchell and of the scouting report of Mitchell in some ways, because Mitchell was a guy who, what did they do? They just had him like kind of sit over top everybody and then just try to get down and attack and use his speed to go and create havoc and create big plays. And it worked. And with Mike Green, I mean, production wise, that worked very well this year.
He did have 17 sacks.
It's not like he has Saban in his ear being like, hey, dude, just like chill out. Like he's just going to go out there and play ball. Like real talk.
Right.
He's just going to... It's like me out there playing flag football. It's like, I'm just going to go play ball. If we make mistakes, we make mistakes. But like, I'm better than everyone out here. Let's just go make some plays. Let's have some fun.
Yeah.
So
this next one for me is what gets me really excited about him. I think that maybe you guys, or me personally, I don't want to be a doubter and a hater, but I think that he can have a little bit more of a plan than he gets credit for. I mean, here, that's a perfect setup. Now, I do wonder if 65 really needs to bite on the inside fake here quite that much, but I mean, that to me is well timed. It's well put together, and it's using his biggest strength to beat somebody that, can't hold somebody that quick, right?
Right. This is very similar to, Theo, once again, they set up this nickel blitz off the outside, and he rushes through the B gap. And once again, he kind of wins on like selling on the inside and then coming back outside, just kind of like what he did in the Ohio State clip. Very similar setup, very similar execution, I think here.
His lateral agility is crazy, so he definitely can have a plan and can set up moves, and he can hit you with the crossover, the basketball crossover where it's head fake, everything inside, and then he loads that other foot and gets around you. It's nasty. It's very nasty.
And I mean, he just wins by it's still a completion. Unfortunately, he doesn't get to complete it, but I mean, he wins this thing by so much. And to me, when I see him have the occasional rush where maybe somebody gets like great depth and he still is trying to go outside, it sucks, but at least it's like working to build and set up what his attack is, which is that you've got to work really hard to get outside because he can bend the edge and he's really quick and he's got these long arms and he can survive a lot of contact. All of that synergizes very well. And then he can immediately cut in as quick as anybody. That is like just a skill set that molds together very well. And while like obviously you'd rather have the strength on top of that as well, it's easy to see what his path to victory is as a pass rusher at the pro level. I think this next one I've got is a pretty major win here from a run defending standpoint. 65, maybe, I don't know how much he weighs, but he's got to have a ton of weight on him. And this is again where even if he just sat here and didn't disengage and just filled his role, you'd be pretty satisfied. Instead, I mean, he gets way around. If that play had gone to him a little bit more, he would have been able to do something really special with that. I mean, that's textbook in terms of how you want to handle that.
And look at how much weight he can put on his foot again. Like, this is what helps him in the bend too. But watch his foot hit the ground as he plants to the outside before rocking back in and disengaging this guy. Like, there's so much force coming down. If we could just right there, like, it's just nuts how much his ankles can withstand. It's his superpower, and it's why I am high on him, because it's like that's the type of trait that you invest a first round pick in right there. Just gets it to a dead stop and goes inside.
It's Achilles heel, man.
It's what he needs to survive as kind of a lighter player in the NFL.
It's incredibly impressive, and it's hard to watch him without thinking about. Sorry, like I just keep thinking, like, damn, my ankle would explode if I did that. Bro.
Seriously, no, I feel the same
That's
way.
all I could think. I'm like, I can't do that at all, and I never would be able to.
Your knees also, man. You gotta. That's the other thing I'd be worried about is.
I don't understand how it's possible for these edge rushers. Like their footwork is very similar to that of like a NBA player trying to like create on the dribble almost sometimes, right? Like the weight transfers, but like they weigh 250 pounds more than that in some, like Garrett, for example, like he weighs way more than that. And they're getting pushed by like 300 pounders and their ankles still hold up in these weird positions. Like, I just don't understand how it's even like humanly possible to play that position.
Got to get in the gym.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, I think there's a couple of things I really like about this play. First off, I think his swim overall is really good, but this is a time where he's going to stay outside. 65 is going to try to get outside with him, and he's going to pretty easily swim over that. I mean, it's basically the opposite of his other win. Instead of going inside to out, he's outside to in. And then on top of that, like, he gets held here and the contact really doesn't bother him. And I see your point about him being sort of an ankle biter and that not always being what you want. But the way that I look at it, at least with some of these, is that it gives him, again, like great range on these tackles. Being able to go, I don't know, if he needed to go chest to shoulder here, right, to make this tackle, like if he had to get all the way in here, there might be more time for Tin to step up and slip out of that, and he'd miss the tackle. Instead, he's going right for the ankle and the roll, and he totally lands it. Like, he nails it. I didn't think Tin played this particularly bad, all things considered. And against a lot of edge rushers, he might be able to avoid this and, I guess, make a play, but 33's coming down.
Yeah.
Too. But he can't, because it's just a dude who's incredibly fast, with long arms, who's incredibly aggressive. So I'm a really big fan of his. I think his skill set works well together. I think there's a lot of positive on the tape. I don't think still that he's going to be some great run defender. I think it's going to be a lot harder for him to set the edge at the NFL level, but it also doesn't feel like it's an impossible task for him. And I don't disagree that he does need to have a plan on more of his pass rushes, because a lot of the time it isn't, necessarily something that alone is going to get him a win, unless the tackle just can't hang with him running around the outside. But I think it's better than just like being a totally raw prospect. It's not like you're just working from scratch and it's like, well, this guy is just fast, and he's so fast that he'll get 20 sacks in the Sun Belt, but he's got to completely rebuild himself. He's got a game to build off of.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's very green, but he has a lot of nice traits to work off of. The length, the bend, the ability to absorb so much on his ankles can make him a good run defender, I think, if he's kind of an outside linebacker type.
And that's the other thing, is like, you don't have to ask him to go and set the edge against everybody. He's going to be a little bit more 3-4 off the ball.
Yeah, he's definitely a 4-3 D end in this scheme. That's probably not what he would be at the next level. And then maybe the run defense or the way wouldn't be as much of a concern. I like him a lot. I don't think he's quite as good of a prospect as Chop last year, who had kind of all this bend and explosiveness and also flashed some of the power. But Chop only had like 4 sacks, and this guy had 17. But Chop had such a great rookie year. I don't know if he's quite that toolsy, but he's not that far off. So I think, to me, I think he's a first round grade, definitely.
You know what's interesting? The comps that I've seen are David Ajabo, Kwity Paye, and Jared Verse.
Jared Verse?
Verse? Who comped him to Verse?
Verse? I thought that was a choice.
I think he plays nothing like Jared Verse.
No. Verse doesn't have any, flexion in his ankles.
Verse had, the most insane power of...
Verse can bull rush you, and he can, cause major havoc on stunts. And that's the opposite of Mike Green. Mike Green can bend the edge and hit that wicked spin, and he can kind of set you up in either direction and spin the other way or counter the other way. I Myles Garrett is a better comp than Jared Verse. I do not compare him to Verse. I saw someone compare him to Leonard Floyd on Bleacher Report, and I'd say that's not a bad low end comp. He's always been a good. He went pretty high in the draft, and he's always been a pretty productive speed rusher. So that to me is kind of a low end.
Well, comps are so difficult because it's not like you make a comp, then people start thinking, well, not people, but I do it too. But you start thinking Madden overall rating, how good, and it's more stylistically,
right,
than anything.
I've sworn off comps this year. I'm not gonna.
You can't win. You can't explain yourself enough, and it's you're better off just talking about them and being it's so hard to find someone who matches up stylistically and with how good you think they'll be.
Yeah.
And then it pigeonholes you into they have I think this guy has a big range, right? But the second you make a comp, you're he'll be this player. It's tough.
No, I'm swearing off comps. That was a mistake I made last year, was wasting any mental energy thinking of a comp. And I'm swearing off just looking at the negatives and saying it's hard to translate and this is their fatal flaw. No fatal flaws for me anymore.
It's more about what you can do than what you can't. There's a lot of truth for that.
A good coach will find a way to make your positives work on the field.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be real with you. I think we liked Chop a good amount last year. Mm-hmm. And Chop has even better bend than Green. Chop probably has, I mean, and his get off is like next level. Green's is good, but Chop's is
yeah.
like, okay,
Green
this is
Green
top.
never like stood out to me with his get off, which to me, like Chop, looking back at it now and after the rookie year Chop had, it's like, yeah, everybody should have had him as like a top 10 pick on just potential alone. He just had so little production and so little sacks. Yeah. And yeah.
But I don't think Chop is as laterally quick as Green is.
Mm-hmm.
I think Green is not to say that he isn't, you know, we're talking about being good versus crazy. I think what Green does laterally is insane. I think there's very few tackles that are going to be able to deal with it if he puts it all together.
Yeah.
I am higher on Green than I was on Chop. It's close. I can see the argument either way.
Okay.
And we'll see as the offseason develops, but I think that Green is going to be a dude who rises very quickly.
Yeah, he'll have a crazy combine, I bet. Agility 40. Like he seems like.
And if it's like all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, this guy produced and he might have a crazy combine and he might, you know, his arms are probably going to measure long. And
yeah.
I would say after like the first 6 or 7 picks, I start looking at like, what's the next tier? And it's a pretty big tier. Like there's no one clear guy after that. I think it's kind of a deeper draft towards the top. Like I think there's a lot of guys who could go first this year, although that's still like an initial glance. But I don't think there's necessarily like at the you know, in the top 10 range. I think there's a lot of guys who could get into that 7 through 10 spot or whatever, depending on how the board falls.
Yeah, I could totally see him rising a ton. He's got the tools. Again, I think he's raw. I think he's kind of boomer bust, but maybe not boomer bust, but you guys know what I mean. I've made myself clear.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him, and I'm not surprised. Yeah, I was drafting him in all my PFF simulator mock drafts. I'm like, boom, we got our edge because Panthers. I'm like, sweet second round, and then they moved them up to 11 on their big board, and they ruined my strategy. So I'm gonna have to find somebody else.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to this film breakdown of Mike Green. We'll be doing some more of these as we get closer into the offseason, as we get closer to the NFL draft. Let us know in the comments who you want to see us review moving forward. And until next time, as always, we will catch you on the flippity flop.